Title: My son said he needed my spare room. Then I found out he'd given my address to the bank my son asked for the spare room on a Thursday. By Monday, the bank knew where I lived. That order matters. His name is Stephen. He was 45 then, handsome in the tired way middle-aged men become when charm starts costing effort. He had my late husband's shoulders, none of his caution, and a lifelong gift for sounding temporary while creating permanent damage. He called just after breakfast. "Mom, got a minute?" "With you rarely," he laughed, good mood, dangerous sign. "I need a small favor." There it was. Children over 30 who say small are usually discussing large disasters in installments. What happened? Nothing happened. Then why call? He exhaled theatrically. Rachel and I are separating. Rachel was wife number 2, kind woman, dental hygienist, better than he deserved and smart enough to notice eventually. "I'm sorry," I said, and meant it for her. "It's mutual." No divorce described as mutual by the man moving out should be trusted. "When do you need somewhere?" "Just a few weeks." "Temporary. The family disease." "How many weeks?" "Till I sort an apartment." "How many?" "Maybe a month." There is no maybe in rent. I looked around my kitchen. The spare room had become storage after Harold died 6 years earlier. Boxes, old lamps, guest linens, and the treadmill I used to hang disciplined laundry. I also looked at the clock above the stove Harold fixed every spring because he enjoyed pretending time required maintenance. "How bad is it?" I asked. "It's not bad." "Then stay there." Pause. "Then it's tense." "Better. Did you cheat?" "Mom, that is not a no," he groaned. "It's complicated." Translation accepted. I should have refused. Instead, I pictured him at 9 with fever, at 16 after his first heartbreak, at 22 asking his father for advice and pretending not to need it. Love stores obsolete versions of people. "You can come for 2 weeks," I said. "You're amazing." "No." Conditional. He arrived Saturday with 3 suitcases, golf clubs, a coffee machine larger than ethics, and the wounded dignity of a man who believed himself wronged by consequences. I pointed at the clubs. "You brought leisure before socks." "They were in the car." "Of course." He kissed my cheek, hugged me too long for strategy, and carried everything to the spare room while narrating unfairness from the hallway. Rachel had become cold. Rachel listened to lawyers. Rachel wanted space. Rachel was overreacting to messages, interesting noun. By dinner I knew enough. He had been texting a younger colleague harmlessly. Rachel disagreed, then found hotel charges, then disagreed professionally. Sunday morning he behaved beautifully, made coffee, cleaned counters. Changed a bulb I had ignored from stubbornness. Men in fresh disgrace are often useful. By Tuesday he had resumed being himself. Wet towels, phone calls on speaker. Protein powder on surfaces no powder should know. And endless phrases beginning with "once I'm back on my feet." He was employed, healthy, and 45. His feet were fine. Still, the house felt less lonely. We ate together most nights. He asked about my garden. I asked whether he had contacted a solicitor. He changed subject with inherited skill. On Thursday, I found the first envelope. White business letter on the hall table. Bold logo, Northbridge Commercial Bank. Addressed to Mr. Stephen Walker, C.O. Mrs. Eleanor Bennett, 14 Cedar Lane. I stared at it long enough for tea to cool. Care of, at my address, without discussion. I carried it to the kitchen where Stephen was making eggs too confidently. "What is this?" He glanced once. "Oh, nothing. Banks rarely stamp nothing. It's just correspondence. Why is my house listed as care of?" "It's easier." "For whom?" He cracked another egg. "For mail." I remained standing. "Why does a commercial bank need to write to you here?" He shrugged. "Old business account." "How old?" "Old." "How much?" He laughed lightly. "You sound like an auditor." "No," I said. "Auditors get paid." He tried charm. "Mom, don't worry." Whenever adults say don't worry, inventory immediately. I set the envelope beside the pan. "Open it, it's private. Then address it privately." His jaw tightened. We had reached the age where sons forget mothers existed before them. "It's handled." "By whom?" "Me." "Incorrect." "It is in my kitchen." He turned off the stove. It's just notices because I changed mailing address. To mine, temporarily. Again the family anthem. I left the room before I said something expensive. That afternoon I called my daughter Claire, younger than Stephen by 4 years. Divorced once, solvent twice, incapable of pretending weak logic was strong love. He used your address, she said. Yes. For what kind of bank? Commercial. Oh good. Crime adjacent. Don't be dramatic. I'm being conservative. She asked 3 questions instantly. Did he ask permission? No. Did he explain debt? No. Is he sleeping under your roof? Regrettably, I'm coming Saturday, she said. No need. Exactly why I'm coming. Useful child. The next envelopes came Friday, 2 more, same logo, 1 marked final notice. 1 marked urgent response required. I did not open them. I did something wiser. I placed them neatly on Stephen's dinner plate. When he came in, loosened tie, expensive cologne, ordinary panic, he stopped dead at the table. What's this? Your meal. He looked at the envelopes, then at me. And for the first time since moving in, my son looked genuinely afraid. Stephen stood at the table staring at the envelopes as if paper itself had betrayed him. What are you doing? He asked. Serving what arrived. He picked them up quickly. You shouldn't touch my mail. You shouldn't relocate your debt. He slid the letters into his briefcase. Interesting reflex. Hide first. Explain never. Mom, this is embarrassing. No, I said calmly. Embarrassing is public. This is dinner. He did not sit. It's complicated. That phrase has fed no one yet. He exhaled sharply. It's a business line. What business? Consulting. He worked in regional sales for a medical supply company. The only consulting he had ever done involved telling bar staff how music volume affects atmosphere. What consulting, side work, when, recently, how much do you owe? He stared at the floor. Not much. Then say the number. Silence, then offense. You don't trust me. Correct. He looked wounded. Adult children hate concise honesty. I had a partner, he said finally. We were building something. What? Procurement platform. I waited. He added nothing. A platform for what? Connections. Meaning, he rubbed his temples. Lead generation. Meaning, introductions. Meaning, he snapped. Business mom. No, I said. Fog. He sank into the chair. At last. We borrowed to launch. How much? He named a number that made me sit down too. From a bank and private investors. Any of whom know my address? No. Yet. He flinched. There was more. Why use this house? My apartment changed during separation. I needed stability for paperwork. You needed respectability. He looked up sharply. Because truth, when accurate, often feels rude. I'm paying it down. Then why final notices? Cash flow. Modern men use cash flow the way children use invisible monsters. I asked the practical question. Can they come here? No, that was too fast. Can they? It's unsecured. Can they come here? They can send collectors. There it was, the real guest list. I stood, Pack. What? You heard me. Mom, don't overreact. No, I am correcting underreaction. He rose too. You can't throw me out over letters. I can remove you over lies. I'm your son. Yes, unfortunately not my tenant. He softened instantly, tactic shift. Please. I have nowhere ready. Then perhaps urgency will improve apartment hunting. He looked desperate now, useful stage. I need 2 more weeks. 2 nights. Mom, 2 nights. He cursed under his breath, inherited badly from his father. I pointed to the sink. Mind your language in my kitchen. He stormed to the spare room and slammed the door. At 68, I no longer confuse noise with power. Saturday morning, Claire arrived with overnight bag, laptop, and the expression of a woman attending theater she had already reviewed poorly. She hugged me first, then surveyed the hallway. Where's the entrepreneur? Sulking. Good. Stephen emerged wearing gym clothes and grievance. Claire, debtor, he glared. She smiled sweetly. They have loved each other abrasively since birth. We sat at the table. Claire opened her laptop. Show me everything. Stephen laughed bitterly. You're not my lawyer. No, she said. I'm better motivated. He refused. Claire shrugged. Then I searched public records. Within minutes she had found filings, a dissolved LLC, 2 county judgments, 1 unpaid equipment lease. I watched my son age in real time. "How did you—" "Internet," she said. "Very trendy." He looked at me. "You brought her in to humiliate me." "No," I said. "You outsourced that yourself." Then Claire found the best part. A personal guarantee signed 18 months earlier, meaning if the business failed, he paid personally. Meaning it had failed exactly as paperwork intended. Rachel, wife number 2, now made more sense. "Does Rachel know all this?" I asked. He looked away. "No." "Does your employer know?" "Stop it." Interesting answer. "Does anyone besides us know the full picture?" He stood abruptly. "I made mistakes." Claire nodded. "At scale, I can fix it. With what money? I'm negotiating." "With whom?" He had no nouns left. I poured tea for myself only, he noticed. Good, then something in him cracked. "I didn't mean for it to get like this." At last, a human sentence. I asked gently now. "What happened?" He sat slowly. "A friend from golf proposed easy side income, connections, medical procurement introductions, referral percentages, bridge loans for software, then more loans to cover first delays, then secrecy, then gambling on one big contract that never came, then using new money to pay old promises, then lying to Rachel, then lying to himself. Classic architecture. I thought one win would solve everything," he said quietly. "There is always one win," Claire replied. "It's called stopping early." He cried then, not dramatically, just tired tears from a man who had spent years performing certainty. I did not rush to comfort him. Some grief needs room. After a while I asked, "Any criminal exposure?" Claire nearly smiled, always practical. Stephen wiped his face. "I don't think so." "What an encouraging phrase," she said. "We made a plan, immediate credit counseling, disclosure to employer if required by policy, apartment within 7 days. No more mail to my house after Monday, no borrowing from family, no small favors." He hated each item, which suggested quality. Then came the knock, 3 sharp raps, all 3 of us froze. "Mrs. Halpern from next door opened my front gate without invitation and called through the glass. "Eleanor, a man in a suit has been asking if Stephen Walker lives here." Claire looked at Stephen. "Congratulations," she said. "Your networking has arrived." Stephen went pale enough to improve the wallpaper. "Who is it?" I asked through the door. "Mrs. Halpern, delighted to be central, called back. "Tall, briefcase, very unhappy shoes. Det does wear specific footwear." I opened the inner door but kept the chain. A man stood on the path in navy suit, damp collar, and the weary expression of someone who delivers consequences professionally. "Mrs. Bennett, yes. I'm Martin Cole from Northbridge Recovery Services. I'm trying to reach Mr. Stephen Walker." Useful honesty. "No," Stephen whispered behind me. I ignored him. "Why, regarding urgent account matters, meaning debt." He gave a diplomatic nod. "May I confirm whether he resides here?" "No," Stephen hissed. "Mom." I raised one finger. "He is temporarily staying as a guest," I continued, "and leaving shortly." The man made a note. Interesting. "Could you ask him to contact us today?" "I can. Could I leave documentation?" "No." He glanced politely past me. "Is he available now?" I smiled. "No." The collector almost smiled back. Professionals appreciate clean boundaries. When he left, Mrs. Halpern approached carrying no plausible excuse. "I baked scones." She held an empty plate. There were no scones. "Thank you," I said. She leaned closer. "Is it gambling?" "No, pity," she said, disappointed, and returned home. I shut the door, then turned slowly. Stephen exploded first. "You lied. I curated. You said I don't live here. You do not. You are leaking here." He paced wildly. "This can ruin me." "No," Claire said from the kitchen. "You handled that. You think this is funny?" "No," she replied. "I think it's overdue." He pointed at me. "You had no right to speak to them." I stepped forward. "You had no right to bring them to my gate." That ended volume briefly. Then he changed tactics, always his gift. "Mom, please, I'm scared." There he was, the real child under the salesman. I softened half an inch. Good, fear can finally do some work. He sat at the table, shaking. I can't lose my job. Then tell truth before they hear fiction elsewhere, Claire said. They won't care. They'll care more if compliance discovers collections linked to side deals. He stared. Do you know everything? No, she said. But I know systems. I asked the next necessary question. How much money do you actually have? He named an amount too low for comfort and too high for honesty. Claire waited silently. He corrected upward, then downward after bills. At last we reached truth adjacent, enough for 1 month modestly, not enough for drama. Any savings hidden? I asked. No, golf membership, he winced. Can suspend. Sell clubs, Claire said. He looked offended. Those were expensive. Excellent, she said. Recover some irony. By noon we were sorting documents, statements, loans, unread letters, passwords scribbled on hotel stationery. Men who build secret empires often manage paperwork like raccoons. I found one envelope from Rachel's solicitor, unopened. Why is this here? He looked away. I couldn't deal with it. Open it. He did. Temporary support request. Asset disclosure demand. Deadline already passed. Claire closed her eyes. You're not juggling, she said. You're dropping lit objects. Then my phone rang. Rachel, I answered. Hello, Eleanor, I'm sorry to involve you, but is Stephen with you? Yes. Pause, then weary laughter. Of course. She asked one thing only. Has he told you everything? No. Good, she said. Then we match. I liked her more by the second. Would you like to speak to him? No. I'd like him to read emails. Fair woman. Before hanging up, she added quietly, I'm sorry your address is in this. That line, from the person he had hurt most, carried more dignity than anything in my kitchen. I thanked her. Stephen looked miserable. Did she sound angry? No, I said. Worse, finished. He cried again. Useful season. By evening, he had done 3 things I doubted possible, called Northbridge. Booked an appointment with a debt advisor. Emailed his employer requesting a confidential HR meeting. Progress is ugly and administrative. I cooked stew. No one praised it enough. After dinner, Claire found me loading the dishwasher. You okay? No. Need me to stay longer? Yes, she nodded. Then said softly, you know you're not responsible for saving him. I know. Do you? I dried my hands slowly. Mothers know many things emotionally 1 decade after knowing them intellectually. That night I passed the spare room and heard Stephen speaking through tears. Not to a woman, not to a lender, to voicemail. Dad. I really messed it up. I stood in the hallway gripping the banister. Harold had been dead 6 years, still parenting badly timed men. The next morning Stephen came downstairs early, dressed for work, eyes swollen, posture straighter. I'm going to tell them everything, he said. Good, if they fire me, then you get honest faster. He nodded once, then hesitated. Would Dad hate me? I looked at my son carefully. No, I said. He'd hate your choices. Different category. That mattered to him. I could see it. He left. At 10:30, while Claire and I drank coffee in peace, another envelope arrived by courier. Signature required. Northbridge Legal Division. Claire looked at me. Well, she said, your spare room has really upgraded the mail service. I signed for the envelope because refusing paper does not erase ink. Claire set it on the table between us. Neither of us touched it immediately. Some objects improve by being ignored for 30 seconds. Open it, she asked. No. Wait until he gets home. Cruel, educational, she approved. The day passed in strained normality. Laundry, soup, Mrs. Halpern pretending to prune roses while monitoring my driveway. At 4:40, Stephen arrived looking as if his face had been negotiated all afternoon. How bad? I asked. He loosened his tie. They know, your employer, yes, and they were already reviewing irregular outside contacts. Interesting, meaning someone complained. Rachel, perhaps. A colleague, perhaps, reality, certainly. He sat heavily. They're suspending me pending investigation, Claire whistled. Paid, yes, then gratitude first, he glared weakly. I slid the courier envelope toward him. What now? Your fan mail. He saw the sender and closed his eyes. Northbridge Legal Division. Hands shaking, he opened it. Demand for immediate response. Notice of intent to pursue judgment. Reference to personal guarantee. Reference to asset tracing. Reference to known addresses. Known addresses, I tapped that line. No more mail here after Monday became optimistic. He looked sick. I don't have assets. They don't know that yet, Claire said. Can they touch Mom's house? No, I said sharply before fear could spread. Then to Claire, can they? Not for his personal debt if title is solely yours and there's no fraud transfer. But they can create noise. Noise, useful legal term for harassment in shoes. Stephen buried his face in his hands. I ruined everything. No, I said. You endangered comfort. Different scale. He laughed once through misery, then said quietly, I'm so tired. At last, the sentence beneath many disasters, we called a solicitor recommended by Claire, Mr. Bennett Shaw. No relation, disappointingly. He met us by video that evening. Mid-60s, efficient eyes, no patience for self-pity. He reviewed basics quickly. How many creditors? Stephen named several. How many truths withheld? Silence. Thought so, Shaw said. He outlined priorities: stop hiding, stop juggling, preserve essentials, negotiate formally, no new borrowing. No emotional loans from relatives disguised as bridges. I nearly applauded. Then he asked, any property in your name? Stephen hesitated. Claire turned slowly. What property? A timeshare share, I stared. A what? It was investment adjacent. Meaning stupid, Claire translated. Stephen winced. Can it be sold? Shaw asked. Maybe. Then tomorrow you learn. After the call, I poured myself brandy despite the hour. Stephen looked ashamed enough to evaporate. Why didn't you tell us all this sooner? He answered honestly for once. Because each lie bought one more normal day. That was true enough to hurt. I remembered Harold once saying debt is rarely numbers first. It is delayed discomfort with interest. The next morning I found Stephen cleaning the garage voluntarily. Another sign of collapse or growth, maybe both. He had sorted tools, boxed donations, and uncovered Harold's old workbench. I forgot this was here, he said. You forgot many things. He accepted that, then picked up one of Harold's chisels. He taught me dovetails on this bench. Yes, I was terrible. You were impatient. He smiled faintly. Still am. We worked side by side for an hour. No speeches. Sometimes men hear best while carrying boxes. Then he said, I always thought Dad respected me less than Claire. Interesting old wound. He respected honesty more than confidence, I said. Stephen went quiet. That landed where needed. At lunch, Rachel arrived unexpectedly. Neat coat, tired eyes, calm energy, I let her in warmly. Stephen froze in the hallway. Rachel. Stephen, no sparks, only weather after fire. She held a folder. Your solicitor never answered, so I came. Practical woman. She sat at my kitchen table like someone reclaiming stolen time. Inside the folder, financial statements, joint account records, evidence of transfers he had called temporary loans. Messages with half-truths. She had organized his life better while leaving it. I'm not here to fight, she said. I'm here because if he collapses completely, untangling divorce becomes slower. Claire whispered to me, I may ask her to Christmas. Rachel continued. I'll sign a structured settlement on our side if he stops lying to everyone. Stephen looked devastated. You'd help me? No, she said calmly. I'd help me finish. Excellent distinction. Then she turned to him fully. You need to stop performing tragedy and start doing admin. I nearly framed it. By evening, plans existed. Debt advisor Monday, timeshare valuation Tuesday. Budget stripped to bone, formal disclosures. Rental search accelerated. Stephen would leave my spare room in 10 days. He did not argue. Good sign. That night after everyone left, he knocked softly on my bedroom door. Yes. He stood there holding Harold's old watch, stopped for years, found in the garage. I had this repaired, he said. Months ago, I never gave it back. I took it slowly. Why? He looked embarrassed. I wanted something of Dad's near me. I fastened it in my palm. You could have asked. I know. There was the whole story again, wanting without asking. He looked at the watch. I'm trying, Mom. I know, I said. Then added, try quieter. He nodded and left. I wound the watch before sleep. It started ticking immediately. Unlike some men, it only needed honest pressure. The next 10 days were the most productive Stephen had been in years. Nothing motivates a drifting man like a deadline and a witness. He sold the golf clubs first. I considered that symbolic. Then the coffee machine larger than ethics. Then 2 watches, 1 speaker system, and a leather chair so aggressive it looked taxable. Each sale pained him visibly. Excellent. Pain is memory entering the body. Claire managed listings with ruthless efficiency. No sentimental captions, she said. Say excellent condition, not cherished. It was cherished, Stephen protested. By debt, she replied. Rachel returned twice, not romantically, administratively. She and Stephen sat at my table, reviewing marital accounts, with the civility of diplomats dividing a failed country. I admired her composure. On the second visit, she asked me privately, was he always like this? Yes, she smiled sadly. Then I stayed too long. Many kind women do. She squeezed my hand. I still care about him. I know, which is annoying. Love often is. Meanwhile, the timeshare proved worthless, not low value, negative value. Annual fees, legal complexity, impossible resale. Claire laughed for 3 straight minutes. You bought recurring regret. Stephen looked genuinely wounded. It was presented differently. Yes, she said, that's how traps work. The debt advisor was more useful. A brisk woman named Sandra who wore sensible shoes and no sympathy. She reviewed everything, then said, you are not insolvent, you are undisciplined. Best diagnosis yet. She negotiated payment pauses, consolidated 2 balances, and created a 3-year recovery plan built on one radical concept: living beneath income. Stephen stared at the pages as if reading fiction. I can't live like this. You already did, Sandra replied. Badly. I loved her instantly. Apartment hunting was humbling. He could no longer afford glossy towers with gyms named studios. He viewed practical flats with thin carpets and honest rent. At the third one, above a pharmacy, he looked stricken. It's small. It's real, Claire said. It's noisy. You're noisy. It has no parking. Walk, he took it. Progress often sounds like disappointment. The night before he moved out, we ate roast chicken in near peace. No letters on plates. No collectors at the gate. No lies currently active that I could detect. Halfway through dinner, Stephen cleared his throat. I owe you both something. Money, Claire asked hopefully. An apology, she sighed. Proceed. He looked at me first. I used your address because I thought your stability could cover my instability. That was painfully well said. Then to Claire, I hated how easily you saw through me. She raised a brow. That was jealousy. Yes. Then to both of us, I wanted to seem successful more than I wanted to be honest. There it was, the central rot. No one spoke for a moment. Then I said, good. Keep that sentence. It will save years if remembered. He cried quietly, less dramatically now, more usefully. Moving day came gray and cold. Marta supervised box carrying like a military tribunal. Lift with legs, not ego, she told Stephen. He obeyed. The pharmacy flat was modest but clean. 2nd floor, small balcony, kitchen the size of confession. We unloaded in silence mostly. Then Stephen stood in the empty living room. I never thought I'd be here. Neither did lenders, Claire said. I elbowed her gently. She was not wrong. I unpacked 1 box myself. Plates, mugs. Harold's repaired watch sat wrapped in socks. Interesting choice. Keeping that, I asked. He nodded. To remind me. Of your father. Of asking. That touched me more than expected. Back at my house that evening, the spare room looked larger and lonelier. I opened windows, folded linens, removed traces of protein powder from civilization, then sat on the bed and cried. Because relief and grief often rent the same room. Weeks passed. Stephen kept his plan, paid on time, worked steadily, attended counseling voluntarily, another miracle. He phoned Sundays. Sometimes for advice, sometimes simply to talk. One afternoon he said, I had coffee with Rachel. I paused. And she's seeing someone. How tragic for your timing, he laughed. I deserved that. Yes, then softly, I was happy for her. Now that was growth. At Christmas, he arrived carrying homemade pie, burned edges, uneven crust. Perfect. I made it myself. No witnesses. No, we ate it anyway. After dinner, he handed me a small framed item. Inside was a typed card. 14 Cedar Lane, do not use as collateral, cover story, or character reference. I laughed until my sides hurt, then hung it in the hallway beside Harold's hat rack, where every visitor could learn boundaries decoratively. Later that night, after Claire left and dishes were done, Stephen lingered by the door. Do you trust me again? I considered him carefully. Older, simpler, less polished, more real. I trust who you are practicing being, I said. He smiled. Claire says you recycle lines. I recycle lessons. He kissed my cheek and left. Snow began outside. Quiet, steady, honest snow. Time did what lectures could not. It made consistency visible. For 2 full years, Stephen remained boring. No schemes, no miracle partnerships. No quick bridge opportunities. He worked, paid debts, kept receipts, and learned the intimate glamour of automatic transfers. I was proud of him in the calm way age prefers. No trumpets. Just steadier breathing when his name appeared on my phone. The pharmacy flat improved too. He painted walls himself, bought second-hand shelves. Learned to cook 3 reliable meals and 1 dangerous curry. He even adopted a rescue dog named Frank who distrusted men in loafers and loved me immediately. Excellent instincts. Claire's life moved briskly. She married Simon, the librarian with useful hands and no appetite for drama. Small ceremony, 12 guests, good cake. I had a chair in the front row, and no need to verify it. Rachel remarried eventually as well. A pediatric surgeon named David who folded napkins after dinner and spoke kindly to waiters. When she sent me a photograph, I wrote back, upgraded. She replied, substantially, family can survive strange shapes. As for me, I turned 71 and began noticing mathematics in the body. Stairs cost more, cold lasted longer, gardens negotiated harder. Still, Cedar Lane remained mine and beloved. The maple in front grew broad enough to shade half the drive. Harold's roses still bloomed through neglect and opinion. Then came the spring leak. Roof flashing failed during heavy rain. Water entered the spare room ceiling and dripped directly onto the treadmill no one respected. Poetic placement. Stephen arrived with ladder, tarps, and a contractor he actually paid. No shortcuts. No cousins who know roofing. No mysterious barter. I nearly applauded. While they worked, I made sandwiches. At lunch, he said casually, you know, if you ever wanted to downsize someday, there are good places near me. I looked at him sharply. He raised both hands. Suggestion. Not campaign. Important distinction. I know. And if you never move, also fine. Better. That was the first time I believed he truly meant it. Months later, my doctor used the phrase mobility preservation. Doctors create new words when saying old things politely. He recommended less stair use, fewer icy paths, and realistic planning. I disliked all 3. Claire wanted immediate relocation. Stephen wanted options. I wanted toast. We compromised by making lists. Townhouse communities, single-floor cottages. Senior living that did not smell like surrender. I toured several places with both children. The first had chandeliers and residents who said things like, our Tuscany years. Impossible. The second was practical but joyless. The third was a row of bright cottages around a shared garden, 5 minutes from town. Small porch, no stairs, good library room, aggressively competent soup. I liked it at once and therefore distrusted myself. So I visited 3 more times, still liked it. One evening I called both children for dinner. They arrived tense. Families mistake invitations after 70 for announcements. I served roast lamb first. No one can panic properly chewing. Then I said, I'm moving. Claire exhaled relief. Stephen looked emotional. I chose Maple Court Cottage 7. He smiled despite tears. That's a good one. How would you know? I may have visited the website. Suspicious but forgivable. I sold Cedar Lane that autumn to a young couple expecting twins and underestimating sleep. They loved the maple tree. That helped more than market price. Packing the house was archaeology. School drawings behind drawers. Harold's receipts for tools he absolutely needed. Stephen's first football trophy. Claire's debate medals. An unpaid parking ticket from 1998 hidden in a cookbook. Likely Stephen. On the final day, all three of us stood in the empty kitchen. Me, my son, my daughter. The room held echoes better than furniture. Stephen touched the doorway where childhood heights were marked. I was taller than I remembered. You were measured honestly then, Claire said. He laughed through tears, then turned to me. I'm sorry I once tried to use this place. I looked around the room where I had buried one husband, raised two children, forgiven one of them repeatedly, and learned myself slowly. You did use it, I said. He flinched. Then I continued. You came apart here, then you rebuilt. That undid him completely. We cried as a trio, which looked inefficient but felt right. Maple Court suited me quickly, neighbors sensible. Paths salted before weather, no gutters, no lurking maintenance ambushes. I joined the library committee within 6 weeks and improved their accounting by accident. Frank the dog visited often and judged residents fairly. Stephen came every Sunday with groceries and stories, never asking for signatures, never changing addresses. One winter evening he handed me an envelope. I raised an eyebrow. Relax, he said. Inside was a statement marked paid in full. Every debt cleared. No balances, no plans pending, no footnotes. I looked at him quietly. Well, he asked. Well, I said, now perhaps we can discuss your truly reckless decision. He frowned. What? The timeshare. He laughed so hard tea came out his nose. Worth waiting for. Freedom changed Stephen more than fear had. Once the debts were gone, I expected some dramatic reinvention. Men often celebrate solvency by becoming foolish again. Instead, he became steady. He kept the same job, kept the modest flat, kept cooking uneven but earnest meals. He redirected old payment money into savings, pension contributions, and replacing socks before holes became philosophy. I admired him greatly and told him rarely. Too much praise can trigger relapse. Claire and Simon had a daughter by then. Mabel, round cheeks, fierce lungs, and the expression of a magistrate in pajamas. Stephen adored her instantly. Nothing softens a one-selfish man like a baby who does not care about his former titles. He became Uncle Stephen in the proper sense. Reliable rides, toy repairs, emergency pickups, no speeches. One afternoon, I watched him kneeling on my cottage floor fixing Mabel's wooden train while she supervised harshly. I thought, there you are, the good man hidden under all that expensive nonsense. Maple Court became a pleasant final chapter. Morning walks, book club wars, soup rankings. Harold had been dead many years, yet I spoke to him there often while watering herbs. Not because I believed he answered, because love leaves conversational habits. At 76, I had a minor stroke. Minor, doctors said, using a word that means terrifying but manageable. Speech returned quickly. Strength mostly did. Driving ended. That loss stung more than illness. Stephen moved first, not into my house, into my logistics, appointments scheduled, groceries delivered. Medication trays labeled. Claire handled legal papers and barked at specialists. Stephen handled presents. He sat beside me during therapy sessions, drove me to scans, learned which tea I preferred after bad news. No martyr performance. No public sainthood, just repetition. One evening, after a tiring rehab session, I said, "You're very good at this." "At what?" "Showing up." He looked down. "I wasn't before." "No, does that disappear?" "The past?" I asked. He nodded. "No, but it can lose voting rights." That made him laugh. My speech therapist adored him. "He's patient," she said. I nearly corrected her. Growth deserves witnesses. Months later, I was stronger, slower, and sharper in new ways. When your body misbehaves, nonsense becomes unbearable. I resigned from 2 committees, exposed one treasurer's incompetence, and started wearing brighter colors. Near death can improve style. Then came another envelope. Stephen handed it to me carefully over Sunday lunch. "Good envelope," he said. Inside was a deed packet. He had purchased a small townhouse, 2 bedrooms, garden patch, 5 minutes from Maple Court. Sensibly financed, I read the mortgage terms first. Excellent rates. "Who are you?" I asked. He smiled. "Apparently a person who compares lenders now." We visited the place that week. Plain brick exterior. Sunlight in kitchen. Room for guests. No room for vanity. Perfect. As we stood in the empty living room, he said quietly, "I wanted you nearby if you ever needed more help." I turned to him. "Did you buy a house for me?" "No," he said quickly. "I bought a life with room in it." At last, the sentence of a mature man, I hugged him before sarcasm could interfere. Years continued. Mabel grew into a bossy child of quality. Claire wrote efficient emails and raised chaos beautifully. Simon remained dependable and underpraised. Rachel and David sent holiday cards from places requiring linen. Frank the dog aged nobly and snored like machinery. I reached 80, then 81, then 82 with less interest in pretending tomorrow is guaranteed. One cold January evening, after dinner at Stephen's townhouse, I found a framed item in the hallway. 14 Cedar Lane, do not use as collateral, cover story, or character reference below it, newly added in smaller print, lessons paid in full. I stood there longer than necessary. Stephen noticed. "Too sentimental?" "No," I said, "just enough." At 83, my health narrowed again, not dramatic, just cumulative. The body eventually sends many polite reminders before issuing instructions. I chose hospice care at Maple Court when time came. My choice, my timing, no one argued. That mattered most. Stephen slept in the chair beside my bed many nights. I woke once near dawn and found him reading Harold's old watch repair manual for no reason except staying awake. "You can go home," I whispered. "I am home," he said. That nearly finished me faster than illness. The final week, Claire arrived daily with Mabel, who drew alarming pictures of angels with roller skates. Stephen handled visitors, tea, forms, and tears badly but sincerely. One afternoon I asked him for a pen. I wrote one last note and sealed it. "For later," I said. When I died, it was quiet. Rain outside, children near, no outstanding balances worth naming. After the funeral, Stephen opened the envelope. Inside was one sentence. "My dear son, thank you for finally becoming the man I defended long before evidence existed." He cried so hard Claire had to read it twice. Then she found another smaller card behind it. "Temporary," it said, "is cancelled forever."